The Anker SOLIX C300. I think this is the ultimate small power station for the content creator, video producer, creative individual. And stick around and I'll show you why. We're a little late to the party here at Real Visuals with this Anker SOLIX C300. It was released in late summer of 2024, and over our testing, we have used a plethora of different units, ranging from the super big, heavy, high output, high wattage units, down to these really small portable units. I mean, we have even built a handful of different units in different sizes and capacities, trying to find that Goldilocks size for our video production needs. And I just keep coming back to this one. It has set the bar for the feature set for these smaller portable power stations. Whether we buy, rent, build a different power station, it always comes back to comparing it to this. Almost always they fall short. Even when we built ours, I always end up comparing it, does it do what this one does? We're calling this the Real Power Mini. We built this power station to rival the Anker SOLIX C300. The goal was to, for that $200-ish, match or beat all of the features that we really need inside of video production. There's parts of it that we did well, there's parts of it that we were a little short. One of the things that we were really actually able to substantially outperform the Anker unit was on battery capacity. The Anker unit is 288 watt hours, ours is 512 watt hours. Building this in-house meant we got to tailor it exactly the way we wanted it for video production. One of those being, we have 4 USB-C power delivery ports compared to the Anker's 2. Now, what the Anker does have is these are both 140 watt power delivery USB-C ports, where ours are only 65 watts. That little bit extra does come in handy with some lights, but for the most part, the 65 watts is typically pretty good. Our power inverter is also a pure sine wave inverter. It outputs the same 300 watts with a 600 watt surge. So that's basically an apples to apples comparison. Problem is, every time I go to grab this unit, I always end up grabbing the Anker instead. I don't know why, I just do. I trust it. Where for whatever reason, I don't have as much trust in the thing that I built myself. It works great, and it's never failed, and it's never had a problem. I still grab this. So we already have one of these units, but it's been a little while since we opened the last one. So let's get this unboxed and we'll walk through all the different accessories this power station comes with. All right, so I probably need to turn it this way so you guys can see a little better. I do have to admit, I like that all the packaging is recyclable. That's always nice. The unit comes pretty well secured in there. A lot of cardboard bag around it, keep it dry. We have a box full of accessories, user manuals. QR code does basically everything. At this point, I don't even know why they include a paper manual, but I guess it's nice to have. Box, we'll get rid of that. We'll go through what comes in the box. I think it's pretty simple, actually. That's it. AC plug. It's about as easy of an unboxing as you get. Unwrap this. And there we go. Even has that new battery smell. That's a thing. Real Visuals creates commercial and branded content for corporate clients across a huge swath of different industries. And we've essentially identified 4 different feature sets that these power stations have to fit inside of our workflow so that we can move fast, efficient, and really create engaging content on time constraints and budgets and all the different variables that these corporate clients have. So let's go through those. First feature set, capacity. This unit has a 288 watt hour capacity, and essentially that means that it can output 288 watts for 1 hour. For us, if we are using a light hooked into this, that's about 3 V-mount batteries that we do not have to change over the course of a day. So instead of change 3 batteries, we plug this in once, we're good to go for almost all day. Okay, so here's our setup. We have an R5C set on time lapse. We have our power station plugged in. This is the Aperture 300D. Right now the light is at about 10% and it's pulling in the 35 to 40 watts. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna crank the power on this and get it as close to 288 watts here. We'll start the time lapse, start a timer, and see how efficient this is. We're gonna be running close to the top end of what this can output, which means it will be less efficient, but I still am interested to see exactly how much power this thing can really give up and hold to provide something like a light, which is something this is a situation we really would use. And to know exactly how long a full battery has is great, because we can always do the math of at 288 watt hours, how long will it run at half that? Especially it being more efficient, give it some buffer. You never want to run it all the way to 0 and turn off when you're not expecting. We'll get the light cranked up, get this set up, get it unplugged, start our time lapse, start our timer, and we'll check back after. We're at 12%. Take it up to 50 and see where that lands. So at 50%, we're at about 150 watts. Let's try 75% power. Okay, 75, we're at 230, 240. Let's go to 90% power. 272, 289. That's crazy with these lights. When you start getting close to the top end, it uses substantially more power. All right, I have a feeling that is about as good as we're gonna get. So let's get this test started. The Anker made it just over 50 minutes, making it just over 80% efficient. We were really pushing this inverter. I would imagine if we did this same test again, but I had it at 140 watts, it would be more efficient and last longer. And even more so, if we use just the USB ports, there's a natural loss in this conversion from DC to AC. So if we were to leave it in just DC, I would imagine these are gonna be more efficient even still. Inside of here, the power pack is lithium iron phosphate. At this point, that's basically industry standard. They can be discharged and recharged something like 3,000 to 5,000 times. And by that point, you still have 80% capacity. So essentially once a day, every day for 10 years, you can discharge and recharge this unit, 80% capacity in 10 years, which in my mind, the battery and the power pack inside of it is gonna outlive the usefulness of this unit. The second feature is probably the most important of all the features, and that's output. This thing can output 300 watts continuous, 600 watt surge. The AC ports, pure sine wave inverter, is gonna give you clean power. So all your sensitive electronics, computers, cameras, lights, hard drives, all the gizmos and gadgets that we need to charge, this is gonna do it great. We don't have to worry about anything getting fried. The USB on this is actually pretty impressive. It's got 240 watt USB PD, which is basically USB power delivery. Both of these ports can do 140 watts, which means that you can plug in two 16-inch MacBook Pros and run both of them at full speed, full power off of this. That's awesome. Not a lot of units have 140 watts out. None of the other units that we've tested had 140 watt output. The other two USB, there's a USB-C and a USB-A. USB-C does like 15 watts, USB-A does 12. That's great for the smaller things. I'm sure I wish those were more powerful, but I understand that there's a limit to how much we can really have and use all at once. If you're charging things like Tentacle sinks or lav mics or small video lights, these two ports are more than enough. I would rather have them than not. And last but not least, there's the 12 volt port. We will never use this port. It's basically useless. I would rather this be another USB-C or another AC port, or even it's just gone completely and shrink the unit just a little bit. That would be more helpful. I understand why it's there for if you're an overlander and you need to plug a fridge in and all those things. Super useful. For us, waste of space. It is what it is. Future me here. After we shot our initial review, I was introduced to a very imperfect solution to my 12 volt problem. And that is in this. This is a 12 volt to USB adapter, and we plug that in right there. We have 3 more USB ports that are now available. Top one being USB PD, meaning that we can fast charge off of it. Is it imperfect? It is. Does it work? It does. Is it ugly? Yes, it is. Feature number 3, and that is input. It's arguably just as important for what we do as the output, because while we use these units, we need to be able to plug them in and charge them fast. Attached to lights, they're attached to client monitors. They can even be attached to cameras, remote cameras, second cameras. I want to be able to over lunch or some sort of break, take this, plug in the AC port, and just jam as much power into it as possible so that when we're done with lunch, it's full. Or it's really close to full. We've had other units that were really disappointing in the power input. AC plug, 70 watts right now, that's it. 4 hours remaining to fill it up. But this one It'll do 330 watts in through the AC, and it will recharge in from 0 to full in under an hour. So right now we're charging at 370-ish watts almost, and that's because we're doing the 330 watts that this can input typically, plus this 40 watts that the light is pulling. So now let's try the same exercise again with it plugged in as a UPS. So we're gonna just jump all the way up to 80%. And now, wow, look at that. It's now inputting 400, a little over 400 watts while it's pulling 250. All right, now let's just go all the way to 100 and see what happens. So with this plugged in, it seems to be able to output the 100% of 330 watts. So it's using this as basically a pass-through UPS to here, and then taking that remaining 50 watts and putting it back into the battery. That means from 0 to full over lunch, which is awesome. For us, the AC port is the best. There are other charging options. It'll do USB-C. It has the 140 watt USB-C power delivery. So it'll do 140 watts in. The only thing is you gotta have a special charger like this that can actually put out 140 watts. Most chargers can't. We got this one off Amazon. It works great. It does get a little hot, but it will charge this thing at 140 watts, basically until it's full. The last charging option is the solar input. You move this little cover right there. You lose a USB-C port, you gain the solar. For us, kind of like the 12 volt, the solar input is essentially useless. We will never, ever use that on a production. There's no way we're gonna be able to go and have a bunch of solar panels spread out across any kind of production to ever be able to really use that to any capacity. It's useless. I would rather have another USB-C. And the fact that we lose a USB-C to use that, this little cover will almost always stay down. The fourth feature set is build quality and interface, and those two live harmoniously together in my mind. This thing is solid. It feels like it is built like a tank. We have it where it'll hang from a light strap on a C-stand and it gets banged and moved, and at no point have we ever questioned, is this thing okay? So the original plan was to show you a bunch of behind the scenes footage of how we use these Anker units on a production. We had a corporate shoot yesterday, and as you would have it, we ran out of time. We are there to do a job, and unfortunately it ran long. So I'm not gonna jeopardize my company's health and financial stability for a YouTube review. So we're back in the shop. This is essentially the setup that we run, and whether this is a light stand or a C-stand, the setup is more or less the same. We have the Anker power station down at the bottom. We've 3D printed hooks right here that these can hook onto so that they're up off the ground. And then we can throw a sandbag off the back and then run an AC port up to the light. If it's a bigger aperture light, or maybe even one of the USB-Cs, if it's a tube light or one of the new small rig lights, we're able to pick the light up. If it's on a C-stand with wheels, we can just roll it around. We don't need to worry about if there's stingers or extension cords or how far or not far. We can really easily move and adapt our sets. And this really, really helps with doing that. We have bigger batteries that we do this with too, but they aren't really able to hang off the stand like this and give it some distance between the ground. They're typically sitting on the ground. I do like having these up off the ground, and having these 3D printed hooks that we designed really makes that great. They just clip right on in the back, and Bob's your uncle. It just takes a beating and just keeps doing what we want it to do, and that's output power. The interface is simple. The screen, it'll show you what's going in, what's going out. That's about all you can ask for. After previously using the Harbor Freight Predator 350, the quietness of this is refreshing, especially inside of a production environment. That Harbor Freight Predator, if you just look at it the wrong way after you plug something into it, the fan kicks on, and it is one of those fans that you can just, it just cuts through silence. It's a weird pitch. Oh, you can really hear the fan now. I'll try to put my microphone closer. It's almost like an airplane. You can just always hear it. The microphones just pick it up. Where this and the DJIs especially, they're pretty much inaudible. You can hear the fan when you get right up on it, but the frequency of the fan, it just blends into the background better. I don't know how else to really describe it. There's a ton of cooling slots through here, so flows through it really nicely. One of the features that this has is that it has a companion app. And I definitely don't take that for granted. We have used some much larger, more expensive units that have no app at all. This DJI Power 1000 has become a workhorse here at Real Visuals. But one of my biggest gripes with it was the fact that you couldn't monitor it from your phone and there was no Bluetooth connectivity. So unless you could physically see this screen, you had no information about what was going on with this unit. And you know, if you are an overlander or a camper, the app might be silly. But for us, when we have this on set and it's connected to a light or a camera on the other side of where we are, and you're in a corporate office and you can't just walk over and check it in the middle of an interview, but you can pull your phone up and take a glance at the app and say, oh, I have 80% of the battery remaining. It's going to make it through lunch, or it'll make it the rest of the day. That's awesome. Or you can say, oh, this is going to definitely need to be charged at lunch. And you can make educated decisions on set. Nothing looks more amateur than having a battery on a light or a camera run dead in the middle of an interview. That is essentially worst case scenario. So for us, knowledge is power. This thing will tell you what it's doing, what it's got going in, what it's got going out. You can do it from your phone. You can do it from pretty far away too. It's got a good range. That is an absolute moneymaker for us. Can't go wrong. Okay, so what are my final thoughts? I really like this unit. Like I said, this is the benchmark for everything else. I liked it so much, I bought a second. To me, that is a testament in and of itself. We put it through its paces and I said, we need another. It wouldn't surprise me if we had a third one of these within the next year. And if Anker, if you're listening, double this bad boy, give me 500 watts of power and 600 watt output and do it in a just a little bit bigger form factor, I'd be all over it. We'd buy 3 of those as well. I highly recommend it. It's not perfect. There's some definite flaws, but the things that it does really, really well. And it does it better than most of the competitors on the market. And with that said, that's why I can't stop recommending it. Every time someone asks me, what power station should I get? This is my default, and it's my default not because I like the Anker brand or whatever. It's just a good unit. Will it be good in 5 years? I don't know, but right now, for the money, it's hard to beat. We bought this one for $189 off Amazon. These things seem like they're constantly on sale. It's kind of misleading, really. I wish they would just price it at the price that it's supposed to be. I've seen it down to $179. I've seen it at $250. Ultimately, I probably wouldn't pay over $200 for it, but at $189, you are right in that sweet spot for price to performance. None of the other competitors are really touching what this can do at $189. At $250, that's a different conversation, but like I said, it's never at $250. And if it is, don't buy it. Eventually they'll just lower it back down to $189 and then pick it up then. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, go to the channel, please subscribe. It'd mean the world to us. We have a ton of content on the way. If you're a video producer, content creator, we are going to be getting into the weeds of all things across the industry, whether that's cameras, computers, power stations, lighting, storage servers, electrical. We're going to go through all of it and hopefully share as many tricks and tips as we can, because ultimately, if we can make everyone a better creator, we all get to level up together. I'm into that. So until next time.